got him locked. Bingo.
Before drones, before digital cockpits, and before Tom Cruise became a real fighter pilot, there was this. A 1986 adrenaline-pumping film that didn't just dominate the box office. It rewired American popular culture, boosted Navy recruitment, and left splashes of jet fuel on the history of cinema. Behind the aviator shades, steam-soaked locker rooms, and air-to-air combat machismo, Top Gun carries a cargo hold of secrets. From melted cameras to a real-life tragedy over the Pacific, what happened off-screen was even wilder than what made it into the film. Buckle up because we're throttling through 20 weird facts about Top Gun that'll take your breath away.
Everyone's getting impatient, Ace. Come on, take the shot. 10 more seconds, then I've got him.
Fact number 1, a pilot vanished mid-stunt. No recovery and no goodbye. It was meant to be another stunning aerial shot, one last swoop to capture the magic. But on September 16, 1985, the Pacific skies fell silent. Art Skoll, a legendary stunt pilot and aerial cinematographer, climbed into his Pitts S2 camera plane to capture background footage for Top Gun's dogfight finale. He'd done spins like this countless times, but that day something went wrong. Mid-flight, Skoll calmly radioed in, "I've got a problem, a real problem." Then, nothing. No flare, no wreckage, and nobody. Just static and an ocean that refused to give anything back. The US Coast Guard launched a comprehensive search, but found no trace of the pilot or plane. Just like that, Top Gun's most crucial aerial eye vanished, swallowed by the very heavens he helped create. Tony Scott halted production, and Paramount panicked, but Skoll's family, they insisted the movie be finished. He'd want it completed. That final line in the end credits for Art Skoll is no afterthought. It's a film tombstone, a man who filmed the skies until they consumed him. The most iconic action movie ever made was built on real loss. No computer wizardry, no stunt doubles, just a ghost pilot carrying the final frame home.
Wood, you got him? Not yet, I can't see him. They must be close. I'm getting a hard on.
Fact number 2, a real pilot almost launched a live missile. Explosions, missile locks, and radar pings. Top Gun made aerial dogfighting feel devastatingly authentic. But one off-camera incident got too real. On set, a Navy pilot accidentally armed a live Sidewinder missile mid-flight with cameras still rolling. Here's what happened. The production was allowed to film aboard real Navy fighter aircraft, including the powerful F-14 Tomcat with live weapon systems. Most of the missiles fired on camera were inert dummies, but a few planes carried live ordnance for training and security reasons. During a routine shot, a pilot accidentally flipped the wrong switch, activating an actual heat-seeking missile. The weapons officer spotted the arm system immediately and shouted, "Disarm, disarm!" The pilot reacted just in time, preventing a catastrophic Pacific misfire. Had that missile launched, it would have created a multi-million-dollar disaster, endangered other aircraft, and possibly killed the production entirely. The footage never made it into the film, but the incident became legend among the crew. Sometimes in filmmaking, the stakes aren't just emotions, they're explosions. And in Top Gun, one misplaced switch nearly turned movie magic into military malpractice.
Roger, I got him. Contact 20 left at 30 miles, 900 knots closure.
Fact number 3, the camera started melting mid-flight. In Top Gun, the aerial combat feels like you've strapped into the nose of an F-14 with metal screaming past your ears. That kind of realism, it literally pushed filmmakers to melting point. To capture the high-G maneuvers of actual Navy jets, Tony Scott's crew mounted custom camera rigs inside the cockpits. These weren't your average Steadicams. They were specialized contraptions designed to handle speed, vibration, and extreme altitude changes. But what they hadn't counted on was the heat. With the jets diving and climbing, cockpit temperatures soared hotter than a car left in the desert sun. The cameras began to malfunction, lenses warped, and casings cracked. At one point, the crew strapped ice packs around the equipment just to keep the film rolling. Some cameras literally melted from the inside out. Tony Scott refused to fake the shots. No green screens, no sound stages. He demanded real pilots, real planes, and real sweat on the canopy. The payoff? A movie experience so visceral that some of the equipment didn't survive to tell the tale. Next time you watch Maverick barrel roll through the sky, remember this: that shot might have incinerated a camera just to exist. Fact number 4, Tom Cruise literally stood in a trench to look taller. Here's the kind of Hollywood problem that makes you question reality. Kelly McGillis towered over Tom Cruise by nearly 3 inches. In a movie about aerial supremacy and masculine dominance, the leading man was getting dominated by his co-star's height. The solution? Industrial-grade creative problem-solving that would make a Navy engineer proud. The crew tried everything. Apple boxes became Cruise's best friend. Wooden platforms strategically placed just outside camera range so he could step up to McGillis's eye level. Custom elevator shoes which added precious inches inside his flight boots. Camera angles were adjusted to shoot from below, making Cruise appear taller and more commanding. But the most ridiculous solution came during outdoor scenes. In one memorable shot, the crew literally dug a trench for Kelly McGillis to stand in while Tom Cruise remained on level ground. Picture this: a decorated actress portraying a brilliant astrophysicist standing in a hole in the ground so her male co-star could look appropriately heroic. The irony was delicious. Here was Maverick, the hotshot pilot who could handle inverted flying and enemy MiGs, but he needed a construction crew and strategic excavation to handle his leading lady's natural height. And somehow, despite all the boxes, trenches, and creative camera work, audiences never questioned it. Maverick looked every inch the confident fighter pilot, even when he was literally getting a boost from the props department. Sometimes the most dangerous thing about making Top Gun wasn't the jets or the stunts, it was making sure the hero looked tall enough to reach the pedals.
Watch the birdie.
Fact number 5, a real astronaut flipped off the camera. You'd think that cheeky finger gesture in Top Gun's inverted flying scene was just a reckless stunt? Think again. That middle finger flyby wasn't performed by a Hollywood pilot. It was executed by a future astronaut. Among the VF-51 squadrons that flew for Top Gun was Scott Altman, a Navy test pilot who later went on to command the space shuttle Atlantis. In one aerial sequence, Altman actually gave the finger to the cameraman. The directors needed someone to gesture at the enemy aircraft during the famous inverted flying sequence. They turned to Altman and said, "Go ahead and gesture at the other airplane." So Altman did exactly that, flipping off the camera while flying upside down at high speed. The directors loved it and kept it in the film, creating one of Top Gun's most memorable moments. As Altman himself later confirmed, when you're looking at the scene where he's communicating with the Russian or the bad guy pilots in the movie, that would be my finger. So yes, when Maverick pulled that adrenaline-fueled joyride, you were actually witnessing a future astronaut giving pop culture the bird at 20,000 feet. Fact number 6, the MiG-28 doesn't exist. Hollywood made it up. You remember it, black as night, sleek, deadly, and giving Maverick the bird at 10,000 feet. The mysterious MiG-28, the supposed Soviet fighter plane that haunts Maverick's every move. But here's the bizarre twist. It doesn't exist. There is no MiG-28. The plane is purely fictional. In the real world, Soviet aircraft designations follow strict numbering conventions and odd numbers only. MiG-15, MiG-21, MiG-29, no even numbers. So when Top Gun threw the MiG-28 at everyone, aviation enthusiasts got suspicious. What the hell was this Black Phantom? It was an F-5E Tiger II from the US Navy, painted jet black for intimidation. The F-5 was already being used by the Navy's actual Top Gun school as an aggressor aircraft to simulate enemy fighters. So instead of leasing foreign technology or creating a CGI monster, which didn't even exist in 1986, the filmmakers just slapped a coat of paint on a domestic fighter and invented an imaginary plane with a vaguely Russian-sounding name. Why not just use an actual MiG? Cold War politics, red tape, legalities, and honestly, the name sounded cool. The result was a jet that exists only in movie lore. Born of necessity, flown as intimidation, and never actually built beyond Hollywood blueprints.
Goose, there they are, right below us.
The MiG's in perfect firing position. He's right on Cougar's tail.
Fact number 7, the real Top Gun school fines you for quoting the movie. I feel the need for speed. Try saying that to a real Top Gun school and you'll feel something else. A $5 fine. Yes, it's true. At the actual US Navy fighter weapons school, the top secret flight academy the film was based on, there's an official policy that hits you with a $5 penalty for quoting Top Gun. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a veteran, spit out a Maverick quote and your wallet gets lighter. Why? Because the Navy doesn't want its elite pilots turning the classroom into a Hollywood fan club. Commander Guy Buss Snodgrass, a retired instructor, confirmed the rule in his leadership memoir. He said the fine jar was meant to keep discipline tight and egos in check. The money collected paid for squadron pizza parties. Ironically, many of the school's students were initially inspired to fly by Top Gun itself. But once they arrive at the academy, they're told to leave the catchphrases in the parking lot. It's not about personality, it's about professionalism. So Top Gun inspired an entire generation of pilots to chase their dreams. But at the actual school, say, "Talk to me, Goose," and you'd better also talk to your wallet.
Started up on his 6 when he pulled through the clouds, and then I moved in above him.
Fact number 8. The tower buzzing scene required 9 takes and nearly 9 court-martials. You remember the moment Maverick and Goose scream past the control tower at breakneck speed, leaving a trail of jet wash and very angry commanding officers? That iconic buzz the tower scene that landed our heroes in hot water, it took 9 nerve-wracking takes to nail. The pilot behind the stick was Scott Altman, the same future astronaut who'd later flip off cameras and command space shuttles. But buzzing the tower wasn't just movie magic. It was career suicide waiting to happen. As Altman himself explained, most Navy pilots don't get to buzz the tower like in the movie. If you did, you could just peel your wings off and throw them at the door because you probably wouldn't be flying anymore. But Hollywood wanted the scene, so Altman strapped in and did what no sane pilot would ever attempt in real life. Once? Nope. Twice? Not even close. 9 times. 9 separate low-altitude, high-speed passes that would have grounded any pilot for life under normal circumstances. And of course they wanted 9 different takes, so we did it 9 times. Altman recounted years later, probably still amazed he kept his wings. Each pass was a calculated risk, a controlled violation of every flight safety protocol ever written. The control tower operators weren't acting when they looked terrified. They genuinely were. 9 times over. So when Maverick gets chewed out for his reckless flyby, remember, a future astronaut risked his entire career 9 times just to give us that one perfect moment of cinematic rebellion.
Now then, this is a perfect example of a textbook maneuver.
Fact number 9. The sequel script was written in the 90s, then burned. Before Top Gun Maverick soared at the box office and shattered expectations, different sequels were written decades ago, one that almost killed the franchise before it could fly again. Sometime back in the early 1990s, Paramount quietly developed a Top Gun 2 script. The pitch? Maverick was an instructor now, training a new generation of pilots, and notably a female lead with a plot involving submarine warfare, geopolitics, and yes, more beach volleyball. Paramount pitched the script to Tom Cruise. He read it and walked away. According to insiders, Cruise wasn't impressed with the screenplay, finding it uninspired, clunky, and too removed from what had made Top Gun work. No heart, no speed, and no soul. In a move that's rare for any studio, Paramount agreed. The entire script was shelved, then scrapped completely. Word is, the final draft was literally burned. No rewrites, no leaks, just ashes. And so Top Gun remained frozen in time, a singular 80s phenomenon without a sequel, until Cruise himself returned decades later with a better vision, higher stakes, and an actual pilot's license under his belt. Sometimes the best sequels aren't rushed. They're earned at 30,000 feet, in afterburners, and with time.
Hollywood, we're losing Viper. Let's just stay on gesture.
Roger, I'm on him.
Fact number 10. The soundtrack nearly blasted theater speakers. Engines roared, missiles explode, and the danger zone thunders like a sonic boom. But the sound design in Top Gun nearly destroyed speakers in theaters nationwide. From day one, director Tony Scott wanted the audio to feel like a jet engine in your chest. To achieve this, sound technicians used actual recordings of F-14 Tomcat engines, not just from outside, but from inside cockpits and turbines. Every boom, ping, and sonic blast was layered with synthesized bass and subwoofer crushing low frequencies, and it worked almost too well. At early screenings, some theaters had their speakers literally crack from the overwhelming power. A few sound systems blew out completely overwhelmed by the underground thunder of dogfights and afterburners. Studios had to warn theaters to either upgrade their audio equipment or risk frying it. Top Gun helped push Dolby Stereo SR, then a new sound system into mainstream theaters. For audiences, it wasn't just a movie, it was an immersive, eardrum-pounding flight simulator. The visuals made you believe you were flying. The sound, that put you in the pilot's seat and pinned you to your chair.
Maverick, get down here and get this asshole off me.
Fact number 11. The missile count? Just 2. Everything else was movie magic. You'd think Top Gun launched an entire Cold War arsenal with all those explosive dogfights, but here's the jaw-dropper. Only 2 real missiles were ever fired during production. That's right, despite your VHS memories, the Navy allowed the filmmakers to launch a grand total of 2 live AIM-9 Sidewinders. They were carefully choreographed, precisely scheduled, and expensive as hell. But Tony Scott's crew knew how to make every frame count. Each missile was filmed from multiple angles. Wide shots, close-ups, tracking shots, and rear views. Then in post-production, the footage was recycled and composited into different scenes. This created the illusion of dozens of separate missile launches throughout the film. The rest, miniatures and practical effects. The special effects team built model jets, filmed against blue sky backdrops, and used pyrotechnics to simulate the look of mid-air combat. Forced perspective, smoke, and sound effects did the rest. Next time you watch that climactic dogfight with missiles blazing and MiGs exploding, remember, it all came from just 2 real launches and a whole lot of clever editing. Hollywood didn't just simulate air combat, it weaponized illusion and fooled the world at Mach speed.
Well, you were showboating with this MiG. Cougar was doing just fine.
Fact number 12, Val Kilmer didn't want to be Iceman, then became a legend. He was icy, calculated, and stone cold with a jawline sharp enough to cut steel. But Val Kilmer, the actor who played Iceman, never wanted to be Iceman. When Top Gun came along, Kilmer was already under contract with Paramount. He read the script, rolled his eyes, and dismissed it as macho fluff ego over substance. So in a small act of rebellion, he walked into the audition and intentionally bombed it. He gave a sarcastic, half-hearted, deadpan read hoping to get passed over. They cast him on the spot. The directors loved his smug, cold delivery, and when filming began, Kilmer doubled down. He stayed in character on and off set. He barely spoke to Tom Cruise, refused to socialize with the rest of the cast, and maintained an icy distance that made the on-screen tension crackle. That famous gum chewing, completely improvised. So, was the dismissive bullshit in the classroom leaving Cruise genuinely cold in the moment? Kilmer begrudgingly admitted the film was career-changingly successful. The role he tried to avoid ultimately became one of his most iconic. He failed and ended up becoming cinema's coolest character.
It's a long cruise, was it, sailor?
It's too long.
What do you want to do, just drop right down on the tile and go for it?
Fact 13, Tom Cruise lost his lunch on every single flight. On screen, Tom Cruise was the epitome of cool under pressure. Suave, cocky, unflappable. Off-screen, however, Maverick was puking his guts out. Literally. As part of his preparation, Cruise insisted on flying in real F-14 Tomcats to film authentic reactions. The Navy arranged for him and the rest of the cast to ride along on actual high-G training flights. It wasn't just about authenticity. Cruise wanted to feel the speed, the pressure, the raw adrenaline of a jet screaming through the sky. But what he felt was intense nausea. Cruise threw up on every single flight, not once, not twice, on every single flight they took. The Navy pilots did their worst. Barrel rolls, negative G dives, full throttle maneuvers. Meanwhile, Cruise was clutching a barf bag. Anthony Edwards, the actor who played Goose, made it through every flight without losing his lunch once. Still, Cruise never quit. Pale and shaking after each flight, he'd wipe his mouth, suit up again, and demand the next ride. He wanted it real and paid for it with an upset stomach. As it turned out, the most dangerous thing about flying inverted at Mach 1 was Maverick's lunch schedule. Fact number 14, Goose's death devastated test audiences, and it was real. You felt it. The moment Goose slams into the canopy, his lifeless body hitting the water, Maverick screaming in the sea spray, is one of the most gut-wrenching moments in Top Gun. But that punch to the gut, it wasn't just good writing. It was the result of a real grisly accident. 2 Navy pilots were flying an F-14 on a training maneuver in 1983 when the aircraft entered a flat spin condition so dangerous that even skilled pilots couldn't recover. As depicted in the film, they attempted to eject. The pilot survived. The radar interceptor officer, the real Goose, died during ejection. He struck the canopy with lethal force, exactly as recreated in the movie. The filmmakers weren't disturbed when they learned of the incident. They handled it with respect, recognizing that it gave weight to Maverick's story and added a layer of authenticity to the film. But when they screened the scene for test audiences, the reaction was overwhelming. People sobbed, some walked out. One executive actually stepped forward and asked them to cut it because it was too devastating. Tom Cruise refused to let that happen. Goose's death wasn't just a plot twist. It was a tribute to the reality that even the best pilots don't always come home.
Here's my reel. My responsibility.
Fact number 15, the volleyball scene almost got the director fired. It's one of the most iconic scenes in 80s cinema. sun-scorched muscles, high fives, and ego-soaked sweat set to Kenny Loggins playing with the boys. But behind the glistening choreography and bare-chested masculinity, the Top Gun volleyball scene was a near-creative disaster. The original script called for a brief montage, a quick series of funny downtime moments between pilots that would last 30 seconds. But Tony Scott had other plans. He envisioned it as a high-gloss, soft-focus Calvin Klein commercial with dog tags and shot it like one of those cologne ads filmed at Magic Hour. Baby oil? Check. Slow motion? You bet. Endless takes? Absolutely. The result? Possibly the most homoerotic, most stylized moment ever shot for an action film. And Paramount Pictures hated it. Studio executives reportedly went ballistic when they saw the dailies. They felt Scott had wasted an entire day of filming on gratuitous glistening flesh and competitive volleyball. One executive reportedly stormed off, threatening to fire Scott on the spot, but Scott held firm. He knew what he had, and he was right. The scene became an instant classic, forever parodied and oddly beloved. Half the audience swooned, the other half bought gym memberships. Turns out Maverick versus Iceman wasn't the real rivalry. It was Studio Notes versus Sunscreen, and the Sunscreen won.
Guess you guys are lucky and famous, huh? No, you mean notorious.
Fact number 16. The love scene was a last-minute emergency fix. It's the moment that got hearts racing and sold 1 million copies of Take My Breath Away. Maverick and Charlie in blue-lit romance. But here's the twist, it wasn't supposed to happen. After test screening, audiences gave one collective note. Where's the romance? The film had jets, egos, and danger zones, but not enough spark between Maverick and Charlie. Paramount then reassembled a cast months after wrapping principal photography for reshoots, specifically to add a love scene and one flirtatious elevator encounter. Time had passed, Tom Cruise was already in production on The Color of Money, and his hair had grown longer. Kelly McGillis had lost 15 pounds and dyed her hair darker for another film. The visual inconsistency was glaringly obvious, so director Tony Scott improvised. In the elevator scene, McGillis wears a baseball cap to hide her new hair color. In the love scene, everything is bathed in deep blue shadows and mood lighting to conceal their changed appearances. What was supposed to be a quick fix ended up being one of the film's most memorable moments. Sometimes the best movie scenes happen by accident, cobbled together with smart lighting, a killer soundtrack, and a looming deadline.
You think your name's gonna be on that plaque?
Yes, sir.
Fact number 17. Danger Zone was rejected by pretty much everyone. It's the song that hits like afterburner fuel, synths pounding, jets screaming, and Kenny Loggins launching us into cinematic space with Danger Zone. It's impossible to imagine Top Gun without it. But here's the thing, nobody wanted to record it. Before Loggins got involved, the producers shopped Danger Zone to nearly half a dozen big-name artists and got a resounding no each time. Bryan Adams passed, not wanting to be associated with what he saw as a pro-military platform. Corey Hart declined, choosing instead to focus on his own album. Rio Speedwagon and even Toto were approached. Toto actually started recording the song until a contract dispute with their label killed the entire project. With time running out and a soundtrack hanging in the balance, the producers turned to Kenny Loggins, who had already contributed playing with the boys for the beach volleyball sequence. Loggins entered the studio, laid down vocals with virtually no rehearsal, and crafted a rock anthem that would define an entire decade. The result? A song that still thunders through speakers, karaoke nights, and jet engine soundtracks 40 years later. The Danger Zone almost didn't happen, and then it did, and blew the roof off Hollywood. One song, one take, one legend born. Fact number 18, the Pentagon rewrote the script. Literally. You might think Top Gun is just a high-octane love letter to fighter pilots, but what you're really watching is a Pentagon-approved production with jet-fueled oversight. When Paramount wanted access to real Navy ships, real pilots, and real F-14 Tomcats, the Department of Defense said, "Sure, but hand over the script." And that's when the red pens came out. The original script had more renegade cocky pilots breaking rules, more characters dying in flight, and a Navy that didn't look quite so spit-shined. The Pentagon wouldn't buy it. For $1.8 million worth of flight time and carrier usage, the military demanded creative control. They reduced pilot casualties, minimized military mistakes, and made sure every scene portrayed the Navy as heroic, competent, and efficient. The final cut still gave us Maverick, reckless, wild, a rule breaker, but within limits. Top Gun became a recruitment poster with a top 40 soundtrack, and it worked. Navy recruitment jumped 500%, with actual recruiters setting up booths outside theaters. Propaganda? Maybe. A hit? Definitely. It's the movie that sold sunglasses and military service in one shot, all thanks to a government script doctored with a covert mission.
Few seconds. I had the shot. There was no danger, so I took it.
Fact number 19. Maverick's name was a tribute to a real Top Gun legend. Lieutenant Pete Mitchell, call sign Maverick. Cool name, right? Well, that first name didn't come from thin air. It was a subtle tribute to a real-life Top Gun instructor, a man who shaped the very skies the movie romanticized. That man was Commander Pete Viper Pettigrew, a decorated Navy pilot, Vietnam War combat veteran, and former instructor at the Navy Fighter Weapons School, the real Top Gun. To ensure technical accuracy, the filmmakers brought Pettigrew as an advisor and consultant to the production. But he didn't just stay behind the camera. Look closely. He makes a cameo as Charlie's date at the bar right before Maverick starts crooning "You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling." As a tip off the hat to his skill, experience, and authority, the writers named Cruise's character Pete. It was subtle, unhyped, but intentionally a Hollywood nod to real pilots who walked the walk and flew the flight path. So next time Maverick takes to the skies, remember, he's flying on the legacy of a guy who earned those wings for real.
Well, it's bottom of the ninth. The score is tied. It's time for the big one.
Fact number 20. Meg Ryan stole the movie in only 3 days. In a film packed with egos, engines, and aerial dominance, nobody expected the emotional gut punch to come from an unknown actress with only 3 days of work on her resume. That's exactly what Meg Ryan delivered as Carol Bradshaw, Goose's spunky, loving wife. Her casting was an afterthought. The producers realized that to make Goose's death meaningful, he needed a stronger emotional anchor, a home, a family, a reason to grieve. Enter Meg Ryan, a fresh face with only a handful of credits to her name. She showed up, filmed all her scenes in 72 hours, and left behind a performance that would resonate for decades. From her playful, flirtatious banter with Goose to her tearful farewell, Ryan transformed what could have been a forgettable supporting role into the emotional heart of the entire film. And it wasn't just audiences who took notice. Hollywood did too. Top Gun became the surprise launchpad for Ryan's film career, setting her on a path to romantic comedy superstardom. In a movie full of fly boys and aerial warfare, 3 days of pure heart from Meg Ryan delivered the film's most human moment and made Goose's death hurt so much that you still feel it 40 years later. And there you have it, 20 bizarre, insane, and sky-high Top Gun facts that prove what happened behind the scenes was as wild, reckless, and adrenaline-fueled as what unfolded on screen. From melted cameras and emergency kisses to a ghost pilot lost at sea, Top Gun wasn't just a movie. It was a mission, one built on sweat, risk, and an incredible amount of winging it at altitude. A film that made us want to soar, taught us to fly, and left its contrail across the landscape of cinema history. So you thought Top Gun was all about hot jets and hotter pilots? Think again. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment telling us which fact blew you away. Because sometimes the real stories don't happen in the cockpit. They unfold between takes, under the radar, and just over the horizon. We'll catch you on the flip side. Until then, keep your shades on, your playlist loud, and remember, there are no points for second place.